and we're already into our second week of Split 1, but that final still remains to be one of Jwei's best series that he has ever played competitively in recent memory. The movement that he had on the Mbessa and the Kiana, even the Jarvan. Notice how two of those champions were taken away from him in this second game, and BLG are slamming the Sion right from the get-go. Does Jwei pull out the Trundle?
It is possible. Trundle's available. You've been a very big propagator of this champion. I am confused, Raafaa. BLG got blue side, and they got first pick again. So, what is IG trying to counter with? Are we going to be looking for a Saboro counter? Are we going to be giving it over to Jwei? We're going to lock the Syndra immediately, a good takeaway from Knight. But Azir is open. You still have Ryze. You still have Talia. If you really want to play an Ahri game, that is another legendary champion that Knight has up his pocket. So I need to see an explosive mid-jungle 2v2 that's going to give me some hope here in this game.
Jwei currently hovering a couple of pretty strong junglers. I would be a fan of one particular one just to deal with the Sion. However, if you go down the list of champions that he performed exceptionally well in on that Demacia Finals series, Kiana was the second one. So he's going to trust in his mechanics and see if IG can turn this series around.
Oh, I know they're probably not going to go for it, but I do think Trundle is very disgusting versus Syndra. Like, Syndra with no flash, there's a pillar, and suddenly she's like, alright, well, how do I play the game now?
Yep.
We're going to get a misfortune. Very clear. Viper has been left to his lonesome on a lot of games. I think of his Jhin performances. Yunar is a great champion because it allows for him to individually duel. And Misfortune gets to kind of push her weight around with the Bloodthirster and just having those love taps and the movement speed. So this is a good enough combo to allow for On to move around the map, get him and Shun kind of getting action on the map, especially around Knight's lane. And the Alistar, I think, is a great pairing with this.
No angle for a Sylas counterpick since you already see the Syndra and the Kiana, the two roles that Sylas would most likely be played in. So IG answer with a Nautilus for Jwei. It gives you some point and click lockdown as well going into the second game. Now, the question is, what is the counterpick at this point being saved for IG? You have 80 carry left to pick for Photic and top lane for Soboro, but both of them are showing already.
I think this is going to be an 80 carry counter pick for Photic. I think you're okay because you know that obviously we've talked about it, the Sion is there. What is he really going to choose, however? It's kind of interesting to me because you know that you're going to this. Are we going to go for the Rek'Sai, which we have seen Saboro go for previously? It was okay. I think Gragas is probably going to be Saboro's best next choice, and it has some good interactions versus the MF, who, again, kind of is going to be that big damage dealer for this team.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, Alk. I mean, this is going to be a little out there. Still wouldn't mind just seeing a Trundle, even if you put him top lane instead. If you want to look for... Oh, sorry, I'm going to need some extra hydration in a bit. But with a lot of the way that top lane quests works now, many top laners are not venturing out of not taking teleport. And I feel like Trundle is one of those champions that you could afford to just go for double combat summoner spells and just try to run an Omega split pushing win condition for IG and just say, look, we're getting clowned on in these team fights. Let's try and pull them apart.
I think Ghost is fine. I think Ignite is reasonable. We have a Gwen. That's decent enough. They're like, okay, maybe if Saboro's going to cook, that's probably going to be the most we're going to get from him. We're getting the Zahen immediately hovered. Whether it's not, it's a Malf or a Mordekaiser we'll end up kind of getting. What I want to see from Invictus Gaming is something that's going to either provide follow-up damage to a Kiana, to a Nautilus setup alongside it. I think Jhin is good.
Okay.
I think we can do better. But I'm okay with this. I know what you're going to say, Raafaa. I'm playing Jhin into Alistar and Sion. What can I do? I think that in this scenario, Syndra hopefully can kind of keep him off, and Photic is going to be more of a facilitator for the team. Let's get Jwei and Rookie into a good spot here.
I just don't ever see the Scion dying unless Saboro picks up something that helps put the Scion a little bit behind the curve so that he's not able to hit those item spikes as fast as possible. And oh boy, well, we're getting a Nightically game for this second one of the series, and Jwei is starting to hover. A couple other junglers that could... Oh my goodness. Yep. Well, if you thought Akali for Knight is already terrifying, imagine what happens when you can't see where he's coming from.
I'm a little less okay with this jungle pairing. I will lie, Raafaa, I'm a little bit afraid. I don't think that Nocturne Akali have great lockdown versus some of these champions. They can chase a Syndra in a side lane, they can chase a Jhin, but in terms of getting down and, you know, in the dirt with some of IG's champions, I'm a little bit worried. Now, this could very easily turn into a game where, you know, Viper gets a solo kill or Knight finds a kill onto Rookie either early on or in a side lane, and then the game kind of just blows open from there. But I do really like what IG have. If they can get out of some of these laning phases, Zahen's going to be a great champion, Syndra's going to be great as well.
I would love to see a little bit of love towards Saboro's lane. I know Bin definitely got the better of him in the K'Sante Rumble matchup, but if Jwei is able to find a couple of windows early on, whether it requires him dropping camps or if it's just him pathing towards the top side of the map, give Saboro a little bit of a lead. Allow him to hit the first item spike before Bin becomes too tanky to deal with in the side lane. Then you can unlock a lane where Jwei is able to play through, and you prevent this Bin Scion from being able to join up with the rest of the BLG squad when it comes to those 5-on-5 team fights.
Yeah, all about inevitability here. For IG, it's a chance at redemption here in this series to keep themselves alive, at least put them potentially in striking distance of a 2-2 record. And for BLG, they just want to keep that undefeated streak going, 4-0 in series, and with a win here in this game would put them at 8-2 at game record.
BLG would become further and further the uncontested #1 team in the LPL, and it is a fantastic way to really kick off our first 2 weeks of our first split of the 2026 season. And I know BLG fans are all eagerly waiting to see how it continues progressing as we hit Game 2 and Summoner's Rift comes to life once again.
So early on into the season, and the IG fans are already they're just being squeezed for life. Please. Cool. Interesting rune setups here. We're seeing a lot more people take cash back, especially the roles that get a lot more gold, like AD carry in mid lane. The double first strike here for Qiyana and for Syndra. So I'm expecting for IG to try to leverage some of these advantages and hopefully get themselves to their second and third items just a little bit quicker than their opponents.
It's definitely a nice way to just try and make sure that you are hitting those item spikes at even timers, even if you're not ahead of the curve. On forced to use that Summoner Heal spell just to make sure that he doesn't lose too much HP, but Jwei and Photic have control of the lane so far. And they're gonna get a decent size crash here on the cannon wave. Deadly Flourish right on top of On. Oh no! That's just a raw 2v2 solo kill.
They needed that, because if this wave didn't crash or they didn't find that kill, this wave could actually just be frozen in favor of Viper. And then the Nautilus basically has nothing to do in this lane. You can kind of either freely roam or look to go for a jungle invade. Instead, Viper's going to catch all of this. That is a kill going over to Photic. But both junglers pathing to this side of the map. I'm hoping we get a little bit more action, especially from our supports here, who we've done some part of the pre-show talking about.
Yeah. Now, I know I'm definitely not a believer of the Jhin into a Scion later in the game. However, if Photic is able to get a pretty fast advantage and start snowballing on the map before the tanks get all their armor and HP items online, I mean, IG might be able to pivot off of this game plan. Now, it's just 1 kill, but it is a nice comfort statement.
It's better than last game.
Yeah, it's already better than last game. Real.
Yeah. We're going to see just the scuttles traded. Shin doing the smart thing. Let's just not invade when I don't have priority on my bot side. Very, very simple things to execute upon. And it's just, the gold by itself is just 300 here for Photic, but remember, Viper caught all of this wave, and now it's going to bounce back here. So with home guards, with the strut passive, it is very easy for Misfortune to not only get around the map, but kind of abuse the early changes to this season.
Yeah, this is a rough position for BLG's bot lane to be in now that the wave is going to be slowly pushing into Photic and Jwei. They're going to need Schwinn to be able to bail him out. The fact that Knight took Electrocute in this matchup instead of Fleet for the sustain, once again, I'm not a purveyor of mid lane matchups, but knowing that we've seen so many Fleets Akali just for getting through the laning phase before you have access to level 6, Knight says, nah, I win these every single time.
It's much better. And that was a very tricky scenario, because if, I'm going to hold this, On might die here. Very close. He's going to have to take a recall. If Syndra had messed up at least one more trade or had waited a little too long in that lane, Knight can just flash engage and suddenly that guy is dead. Or you lose both of your summoner spells. So part of the reason why you want to take Electrocute, and you just have so much sustain, D-Shield plus Bone Plating, you're usually going to be fine. I wonder if he has second wind, because if he does, then that just completely nullifies anything that we might see Rookie do in the early laning phase.
Jwei unlocked from the early presence in the laning phase, tries to invade with Wei onto Schwinn, but he gets out alive for now, and On even tanks the Deadly Flourish so that Schwinn doesn't get rooted on the way out and take extra damage. But at the end of the day, no one really burns summoner spells, and IG just trying to find other windows where they can continue to squeeze the advantage.
I did my homework. He did, in fact, take second win on Akali, so he's 2023 maxing, or 2022 maxing. We're back to second win D-Shield. Omega buffs coming on through. But aside from that, Rafa, we're in a 5.5 minute game state. I think is an incredibly fake ultimate from Saboro, but does completely stack up his passive. We've got gold advantages for all members of Invictus Gaming, and Wei is quietly farming up, about to hit level 6 if he gets this bottom side scuttle. So that could be a pretty big turn. That could turn into Dragon immediately.
Yeah, it can be the single decider of this first big skirmish. Dredgeline, though, onto On. He has yet to use his flash this game so far. Has been holding on to the summer spell. Schwinn coming over just to see if he can push IG off, but he's got to be careful. Remember, whoever gets this crab between the two junglers, yeah, you got to back off. Good use of the spell shield off of the Dredgeline. If he had pulled him in and then Wei hits level 6 off that crab, that could have easily been either a flash burned off the Nocturne or a dead Nocturne in the river.
Shin's looking for a camp right now. He needs 2 camps, actually, to hit level 6 from this point on. So he's going to go into his top side, and Wei gets level 6. They're not going to even fight for it. I was hoping that would maybe turn into a dragon, but I can understand some of the hesitancy, especially with maybe Viper having that extra time on the bottom lane wave. I mean, he could be closer to level 6 than his opponents are expecting, but Rafa, we're just getting more full players. Oh my, another one. Remember, okay, I'm gonna let you guys behind the curtain here. There is an LPL podcast coming out tomorrow. And in it, I felt very English there. We talk about Jwei's laning phase. And I remember showing everybody in the storyboard meeting that the Jwei flash engage not getting punished at all. Okay. Now we're just tugging at the heartstrings.
Low-key almost went for the punish. So, a couple big things. One, Jwei, I think he was trying to Giga Brain predict the flash out of Viper. Viper doesn't bite, and so Jwei looks, unfortunately,
a little silly.
A little sad. Yeah, a little sad and silly. And then because Jwei doesn't have flash, and Viper hits level 6. On just goes for the rip, and now Photic is down a flash.
Masterful gambit from BLG Viper. Do nothing, get both enemy flashes in bot lane. Beautiful. That's true tech right there. That's worthy of a Sheep Esports MVP post. I mean, look what happens. They tried to go for a reverse all-in from BLG's perspective. They get priority on the bottom lane wave, and this is first dragon going over IG. Wonderful. Okay, sure.
Everything works out in the end for Invictus Gaming. First dragon secured. Jwei already well on his way to picking up a Profane Hydra very soon. Bin. My goodness. Well, you know, Sion is a League of Legends champion of all time, where you are a tank and yet your base damage still kind of clowns bruisers sometimes.
I will also note Zehen early laning phase isn't the strongest champion, so it makes sense. And like you're mentioning, the base damages are just there. The Soul Furnace is very, very good. Already 350 HP there and has the Bramble Vest, so nigh unkillable at this point versus the Zehen. Regrub's going over to BLG. Does feel pretty nice. You're giving Akali a little bit more threat on side lane. This is going to be another scuttle going over to Jwei. But if this Kiana never gets active in any like real fights or whatever, which I imagine we'll see sooner rather than later, I think you're fine with the trade here as BLG.
Ooh. Quick feet and movement for Viper to dodge out on the Deadly Flourish, as Photic had a 4th bullet in the chamber, ready to rip and take a huge chunk of his health bar there. I feel a little bad for Jwei because upon that collapse of Schwinn in the topside river, had he had Flash, I think he could have at least tried to look for a flash trade and put Schwinn at least on the back foot. Maybe not a full kill opportunity there for Jwei to follow up on, but missed opportunities. So we want to call back for BLG. Both of their solo laners are biding their time and trying to get their items without too much deterrence from their solo lane counterparts, and so far, they are definitely getting to that point.
For Rookie, we're also farming, right? Like, we're getting our Syndra stacks. He just reached over 60 Splinters of Wrath, so he'll have his Q evolve at this point. Just means that he has more Orbs of Deception to use. And maybe there's something coming up in 3 minutes. I mean, we're still waiting for some of these plates. Bin's dodging out on Saboro, but he still has ult. I think he just walks him here.
Yeah, Grim Deliverance already used. Yes, Saboro does have the mini GA in his passive, but Bin, if he needs to, can just try and flash away from another tug of the W. Soboro does force him off for now, but Bin holds on to his summoner spells, and he holds on to the unstoppable onslaught.
Soboro's got to be careful. He walks back up for this wave. On. Has ult. Uses heal. Is going to get out of this one. Doesn't use either of them. Or just uses the summoner spell, I should mention. Saboro, we don't have it. We don't have it, brother. Maybe we do?
Bin did use unstoppable onslaught, and it wasn't enough damage for Saboro to feel threatened. Bin does back off for now.
Never mind. Bring me back the other game, because at least that time, like, we had a very defined game. There was, you know, mid was up and ahead for BLG. This is significantly more boring, Raafaa. I was promised some action here.
Well,
Rookie hasn't even lost his flash yet. Like,
hang on. Jwei was waiting in the wings, but Knight flashes away in time, and the cover of Paranoia gives him the necessary means to retreat, and a simultaneous play on top side, killing Saboro.
That doesn't count. I'm not counting that as action. That was fake. A good attempt onto mid lane. Zehen, unfortunately, going to lose his life as Saboro is going to have to wait for that next wave. He does have teleport if he really needs to catch it here. But Bin's already acting first. He'll get back to the wave. He'll push this out, and then he can say, I can shift into mid lane using my ultimate, or just walking, honestly, at this point. And IG are now going to have to find a much more creative angle. I mean, Knight has no flash. Schwinn has no flash either, so maybe that's something that they'll look for. Whether or not BLG actually gives them the option of fighting is another question.
Yeah. It does allow this Nocturne to hit Experimental Hexplate, which is a big spike Jwei was trying to use that profane Hydra spike of his own to find Knight in that pickoff, but unfortunately just not enough damage between him and Rookie, and covered Paranoia ensured that he got out, especially with the cast of the flash. We are about 25 seconds from the second dragon spawning. IG are slightly ahead of the curve. Collector being picked up for Photic's Jin and the Swifty boots, so this is going to be a fast boy on the Rift. We'll see if BLG are able to minimize the threat that he has, or if IG can really leverage this to a second dragon without any contest.
I think you can. I mean, you've had this profane Hydra. Misfortune, thankfully, isn't getting shown on the recall, but she has, again, so much movement speed. Is a completed Bloodthirster coming on through. It's a little late now, though, if you think about it. Invictus Gaming already hitting the dragon. We're stacking early. We are using some of the early priority from either lane matchups or some flipping that's going on. And that's creating advantages here for Invictus Gaming. So that's great. That's exactly what I want to see from IG. This is significantly a better game, early game anyway, from them compared to game one. And at least being a little bit more promising for a roster that we have a lot of high hopes for. Not just from winning Demacia Cup, but I mean, a team with Rookie. This is an IG roster that is in a little bit of a rebuild phase after last year.
Uh-oh, Knight with no flash might be in trouble, but sure can backflip, gets him away from danger. And On was there ready to headbutt any threats that tried to pursue him towards the turret. Schwinn is waiting on this bush, though. Paranoia at the ready. On the left side of the wall. I don't think you can really engage. Yeah.
We have no damage. It's Shin On, and Akali is coming out of base and walking towards bottom lane. I was wondering why we had this lane matchup. Rookie's got to be careful. He has teleport. No. On's dead.
Okay. Well, he pops the ultimate. He still has flash. Which,
wow.
All right. Curtain call, trying to find him, but Viper should be able to absorb any shots necessary. And On does get out of the cone range. Wow, this is, all right.
Are you feeling it? I'm gonna join me?
This is what I'm going to say, Alk.
Yeah?
The entire opening week, On has had stellar games, even in losses.
Yeah.
This series is a bit of a underperformance so far.
Game one was good. Wait, hold up. Game one was good.
Yeah, game one was good. Okay, so the early laning phase, I was like a little bit iffy on. Later on, the Tempered Fates were awesome, but it's been a little difficult. But I'm still very high up on this, the way On has been playing this opening split. But I think IG is definitely putting him in a very uncomfortable state in these first 15 minutes.
Hey, the fact that he survived there is awesome, and IG never got to truly capitalize on the Herald right now. This is such a good spot. Knight has priority over Rookie somehow in the bottom lane. They are losing mid-tempo, but Shun is farming up. He's level 11. He's caught up with Jwei. And Sion also has priority over the Zahen. So, unless IG can find an opening, whether that's maybe getting Knight to recall here, we're never picking up this Herald, at least for a short while now. And that's giving BLG time to farm up, which was, you know, a part of the game that we didn't really want to see, especially because we know Bin eventually is going to be very, very a big nuisance anyway for Invictus Gaming.
Well, at the very least, BLG, even though it was a tough war of vision that they had to try and make their way through, they're at least on the Herald. However, Jwei and Jwei are in the area, and they have to respect it right now.
Is this a leash? Are we leashing this objective?
On absorbs the dredge line, pops the ultimate once again.
No!
Oh, the Herald resets. And BLG are going to have to call it off.
I wonder if IG are going to go back and say, like, did we really need to ban Nocturne in game one? Did Shun's Nocturne look that good versus AL? The answer to that, everybody, is no. But
there's that one nice play, but it did
and then
require...
I remember the Scuttle invade. I remember walking into topside jungle.
That part did happen. Yes, that part did happen. But if you can't handle Schwinn at his worst, you don't deserve him at his best, and that's just how the matchup goes.
That's fair. Well, IG, they end up still grabbing the Herald. Dragon spawns in a minute. And I'll be honest, I put a lot of onus on IG to play the early game. They've done decently well for themselves, at least generating a grand of gold here for Photic. And now I need to see BLG kind of do the same. Like, let's get some of that clean team fighting. We haven't seen a 5-on-5 here in this game. We haven't seen a proper setup for Viper's bullet time. Now with the onus is a little bit on you, because this is Soul Point coming up, and you don't have the best vision so far. IG do have a couple of wards still on the top side, but generally speaking, I would say this is still an IG favored river.
It's been a really, really solid game from Invictus Gaming so far as a response to the way BLG came out and pretty much clapped them off the back of Knight's dominance against Rookie. Jwei and Viper just trying to see if they can find an angle over the wall, but Jwei does tag them with the grass cue. A little bit of extra gold with that first strike in his pocket. Axiom Arc has been completed, so this is by far the strongest point of Qiyana's gameplay and core build, because it's a lot of lethality, and if you start snowballing from this point, you cannot shut her down.
And IG, they get first say. They move into the river first, the mid waves haven't crashed yet, and Photic gets just walk back into this lane. They can drop a Herald if they really want to, and kind of force the issue. There we go. It gets summoned. They can move it into mid. There's a ton of crystalline overgrowth on this turret, so whoever hits these plates is going to get paid. And now BLG are going to have to be second into the river.
Won't take out the tier 1 turret immediately, but decent damage. And like you said, it gives Invictus Gaming first walk into the river. BLG are going to have to face check into that banana brush. Jwei gets briefly spotted. Rookie is over on the right side. Darkness for the rest of BLG. Here comes Sun into the middle of all 5, and Knight is there to follow up on the play. Invictus Gaming did pretty much everything right, but the execution is still going BLG's way. Soboro's trying to wreck house on a Viper, flashes after him, gets the first trade of the kill onto a BLG member. He's going to revive thanks to the passive. Curtain call from Photic trying to fall on up, and Saboro just can't get it done. Picks up a double onto 2, but the rest of BLG can at least answer back and hold their ground.
No dragon taken. Jwei is going to come up first. Do they make a beeline for this? Photic and Jwei can stay in mid lane. Bin can also stay. We'll have teleport. Knight does the same. There's also Hextech portals, which we haven't really talked about. That'll open up a lot of free map movements and make it a little bit quicker to get around Summoner's Rift right here. But in that fight, IG, they just missed a couple of buttons. That was an amazing paranoia from Sun. I mean, we can take a look at this again. They have no vision. On gets the Phaelite for the banana brush. And then Rookie can't do anything. The teleport's a little late, but this ultimate from Jwei lands on a nobody from BLG. So, while there are some great buttons being pressed by IG, I think the setup was a little bit missing. And BLG just barely get away with a couple of these kills. Thankfully for Invictus, Saboro does at least grab 2.
Yeah, the Suhen pretty much saves what almost was a complete blowout by BLG. The fact that he trades 2 kills ensures that IG do not go home empty-handed. And they can at least try and set up for the dragon again as we get it in the picture. But Knight has solo killed Rookie on the top side of the map. Knight has TP. He's going to join the fight now. Perfect execution, not available anymore, but he can still try and lend his power into the fight. And Invictus Gaming are dropping like flies. The Grim Deliverance ends up just being a delayed, inevitably end for Saboro. And the third dragon will finally go the way of BLG.
These last 2 fights have completely ruined IG's game, and BLG now find a 3,000 gold lead. Knight getting a solo kill onto Rookie. He teleports into that play, and then we get a massive bullet time. Now they'll get the dragon. They'll get all 4 of those kills, and potentially 2 turrets in mid and bottom lane here. That is a massive influx of gold going over to Bilibili.
Photic's got to be careful. He does have flash and barrier available, but he's trying to use his pressure as much to try and stop that tier 1 turret from falling. Unfortunately, he cannot succeed in his mission. And for BLG, they finally find the window where the gold lead swings wide open in their favor.
So what happens? No stun? Oh, Rookie, we can't, if we're not going to use the stun to kill him, we can't use it. That is a tool you most need. Knock up onto the Nautilus. Bullet time to kill Jwei. Another supreme display of talent that looks like it is lacking all of it. I love the coordinated flash from Bin and Should. The new Willem combo of Bilibili showing off a little bit there. I don't know, Raafaa. Like, we set up for the third dragon. I was like, okay, IG, you're looking good. Let's pop some questions here for BLG. But they completely fumble it 2 times in a row and have put their game in jeopardy now.
And listen, it is a tall task to try and coordinate a fight when you don't have vision from the paranoia. And unfortunately, Saboro is going to get a taste of darkness once again. BLG continuing to just hammer home this snowball. And IG are now running out of options of getting back into this game.
The solo laners are just clicking here tonight. Bin, Knight having monster performances on 2 very... Let me not say 2 very different champions, because Sion and Cassante are very similar. Maybe Orianna and Akali are different. That I'll give myself that one. But we'll be fair here. Still, they're kind of reaching some high highs. I'm not going to say it's that impressive to see them solo killing Rookie and Soboro, especially this early on in the season. And from what we've seen from IG, it doesn't seem like it's that impressive.
Oh no! Well, Jwei had to go hunting for some vision and lay down some wards, and unfortunately, he's the one that's getting laid down to rest in the grave. And IG was out on their support for another 30 seconds. You can see in the player cam how disappointed Jwei looks. Understandable. This game was being set up so well by Invictus Gaming. They had a very clean 15-20 minutes where the first 2 dragons go their way. They're not being contested. Jwei and Photic pretty much just ruined Viper and On in the laning phase and made it very difficult for them to try and get ahead and get any semblance of push.
Oh, is Akali going for it? Oh, we're doing this.
Oh boy. Well, supreme display of talent did momentarily stun a couple members, but the perfect execution is sending Saboro back to the fountain on another gray screen simulator.
Knight is level 16. He's a level and a half over Rookie at this point. Saboro getting killed as well. I mean, it's just going from bad to worse. It feels like IG are kind of collapsing as they give multiple deaths over. No Baron started for BLG, but I don't think they're super worried. There's a dragon spawning in a minute and a half. That's kind of what we're looking for. And I gotta say, if we are being honest, unbiased, critical commentators for this game, I need to see more out of Jwei and Rookie. I think it is fine for a LCK Challengers top laner to, have a rough stint as his opening bid into playing in the LPL. But for Rookie and Jwei, we must hold these two to a much higher standard than we have seen before. And especially for Jwei, off of the back of his Demacia Cup resume, we came in thinking that he might be the big carry for this team, and we have seen none of that so far this season.
There's been only a couple of performances in and there off of the Oh my goodness!
Jesus Christ, man!
Well, so... the early game was a bit quiet for BLG and Knight in particular, but he was just biding his time. And now that he has a effective 3,000 gold advantage and Shadow Flame Hextech Gunblade working towards Azonia's Hourglass, yeah, this guy is running train on anyone that walks into his side lane.
You get one. That's all I'm going to say. You get one. All right. Raafaa. You know what I am going to say? This game's cooked. This game is so cooked. Like, yeah. Okay, yeah, show me the replay. Misses Q. Wow, that dash does a lot of damage. And that wasn't even before the perfect execution. Gets even past the flash. There's a reason why this Gunblade was taken out of the game. It turns out having point-and-click slows is not great.
Having access to Omnivamp is pretty insane for an assassin. But you know what? All the Akali enjoyers and mains are rejoicing and thanking Riot Games for the LP gains that they are getting in our first couple of weeks of the 2026 season. And we'll see if it results in either a nerf to this item or if Riot will take the approach of we must nerf the champions using the item.
Nah, so. I think the side, 25% slow for 1.5 seconds isn't bad. It's a minute cooldown. 700 range in my mind is a little ridiculous, especially when we're talking about Akali. Like you're basically giving Akali a way of getting on top of you, and it is point and click. So either we make it a skill shot in my mind, which I don't think Riot is going to do, or we have to tap some of the stats on this. Like 80 AP is pretty ridiculous, especially for a 3,000 gold item.
Oh boy, well, that was a lot of damage on Jwei, but he's got a GA, so he's totally fine if he just wants to send it in there for the boys.
Oh!
Come on! That's the Alistar gameplay I've been waiting for you from all this second game. Ben is going to route off the escape pass of a couple members. Jwei desperately trying to get away from this massive Scion, and Rookie just expended his scatter of the week, so you know that Viper's flashing on him all day, every day. IG only down to 2 members, and BLG know that it's time to rip this Baron.
Yep, let's go take the big purple worm. Let's move it in so we can start to finish out this game. BLG, bit quieter early game, and that's the big misconception I want people to get away from, is there are going to be a lot of games that BLG are going to win this year by just having the best laners in the league, but what I've seen from them in some of these games has been incredible to watch, and we're going to see another mechanical display.
Oh my god. Knight is just pub stomping on IG corpses, continuing to aura farm for the montage, and I'm sure that the LPL official TikTok and Instagram is going to have a hell of a time going back through this series and just farming highlights for Knight's montage plays, as Saboro now steps up with Rookie behind him, trying to see if they can damage this guy. But here comes Jwei, looks for Photic in the backline, says, I'm sorry, Jim, but you don't have flash and you're not surviving. Rookie does expend the GA from this Nocturne, but he flashes away from the force of will, and Soboro tries to step on up, but a good sidestep from Jwei, forcing him to use the Grim Deliverance. Clean use of the perfect shuriken backflip into the perfect execution. My goodness, BLG just all here for the style points. A 5-man push. Jwei alongside Jwei. I don't know if they're going to be enough. On is going to hold them at the door. Supreme display of town on the 2, but Jwei just blocks it with a spell shield, gets even more attack speed so he can finish this game out faster. And BLG with a clean sweep over IG.
A 30-minute win, 20-3. Remember, we started this game, we're like, okay, they got a kill on bottom lane. They set up mid and jungle. This was looking good. And then the mid game happens, and IG completely lose their minds. It is clear to me, anyway, that while Jwei and Rookie try to sculpt some of their mid games, it was clear from last year that Invictus Gaming, even with some of these same pieces, they struggled in some of their early games. They weren't the best laners, but having Mako, the smartest and best support the LPL has ever seen, led this team to being competitive in large playoff series throughout the year. Unfortunately, he's on hiatus for the first split, so this is more tough losses, and I do want to note, most of the Group Ascend teams will naturally make it into the 10-team playoff bracket that we'll have for Split 2. But depending on how IG go, if they lose their first 2 series in that playoff bracket, I know we're talking very long from now, they could end up in Group Nirvana.
Oh, well, that's not a fun prospect for
it is not.
This squad. And you know what? For this, the cope I will say for IG is, 1, they did get a series win over JDG, who is looking like, other than anyone's legend, the only other contender in the top 3 pool that can potentially challenge BLG. And that clash between JDG and BLG will be later this weekend, which is going to give us as close to a full picture of what we have in Group Ascend and power levels. But at this rate, BLG look damn near unstoppable. They have been challenged. They have been at least taken the full distance in a 3-game series by Weibo and Anyone's Legend respectively, but neither of those teams have been able to get a series win over BLG just yet. So if you're IG, you're in the pool with top esports and Weibo Gaming, who are on the struggle bus and just trying to make sure that they do not end up in the spot where they have to play the best group perseverance team for a spot in playoffs.
Okay, surely I'm way less worried about Weibo versus group perseverance than I am for IG and top esports. Those are 2 teams that especially top esports, if they have a bad day, thankfully for them, they will have a lower bracket. At the very least, you will have to play against a Nirvana or another Group Perseverance team. So they'll have, if they fail the first time, they'll have a second try to kind of get in there. It would put them at a lower seeding, though, which might mean you end up playing against the first seed of LPL, which we're assuming is going to be BLG at this point.
Right.
Yeah, I'm... Again, what I said after Game 2 or Game 1 still applies here. I want fans at home to live in this moment. I want us to be happy that we're seeing BLG play this well. I want to be happy that BLG are winning their lanes and they're looking as dominant as ever. Because just like any team, this could change. We could have a meta shift and suddenly this doesn't happen anymore. We could go into Split 2 with Jackie Love returning and Mako coming back and the league looks a lot closer. And we don't have as dominant games. So whether it is just Split 1 or a trend for the rest of the year, I want to celebrate them while they're looking good.
So you know what that means, folks. Go tell your friends. Go tell your family. Go spam it on Twitter. Go spam it on IG, TikTok, or YouTube. That BLG is freaking back, baby. And we are on this BLG hype train for as long as they can maintain it. And I hope it is for the long haul, because when this team is at their peak and at their best and currently experiencing a development and evolution beyond the point of what we saw in 2024 and what their identity was, I am all here for a BLG squad that not only boasts the best laners of every role from their league, but also a team that can play the map methodically and patiently.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
Let's hope. Let's hope here. Kind of last bit here for Invictus Gaming. They were very heavy underdogs coming into the series. I think you mentioned it or phrased it the best. IG have the possibility of doing the funniest thing possible, and that would be beating BLG. But it was very clear that Rookie still has a little bit of time to kind of get through there. Man in the mid lane made it a little bit more tough, especially. But there are bright spots. I am just worried about, can they get to it in time? And what is the mess that Mako's going to come back to if he does even end up returning to this lineup? Because he's going to come back and he's like, I got to teach you guys macro. We're going to have to probably spend the first half of Split 2 doing that. And then what does that mean for the rest of our season, right? Like, are we playing for a Split 3 championship? Maybe.
It is actually a good thing to bring up, because I'm genuinely curious how the leadership and the leadership, or what am I thinking of? Leadership and how vocal the dynamic changes when Mako is back in the lineup, because Jwei has just kind of taken over the direction for the game, because someone has to if Mako is not there. And
it's him and Jwei. It's him and Jwei. Jwei is super loud in comms.
Right. But in terms of experience, because Jwei is trying to do his best, but doesn't always make the right call. And one of the things that we noted is that while Jwei has a playmaker's eye, sometimes the vision of where his teammates are is outside of the tunnel vision, because all he sees is, I can hit a 4-man Magnastorm, but he doesn't see that his teammates are in Narnia when he makes the play. It doesn't happen all the time, but unfortunately it has plagued him in the past. So it is what it is. I still want Jwei to be able to hit the highs of being one of our next best potential LPL native supports. That would be so cool to continue boasting talent in a role that historically, other than Mako and a couple key other members, I guess if you look back in time, Ming, another great LPL support from pre-2020 era, then because LCK's got really damn good supports, man.
I know. You know, if we're talking about the support class as like a group of players, you mentioned Jwei. Another player that's on a very similar timeline right now is Vampire over on JDG. These two players are both in their third year of playing in the LPL, and it kind of is both of them coming off of monumental splits for their individual careers. Vampire coming off of a somewhat successful WE that were expected to do nothing. Jwei coming off of a kind of floundering FPX, but looking like one of the better stars of that team. And so now they're both on better rosters than they've experienced previously. And so this is their, like, true debut. This is kind of the moment where you either step up or sit back down. And if you're talking about a player with a little less experience, you're continuing on with the threat of being here in Group Ascend. I do think that Raafaa over on Weibo is genuinely impressive enough. It's just that him and Elk in the lane are not clicking right now. And that's going to be a question that I think is maybe going to be answered as we go throughout the year.
Yeah. It is tough to try and make your name and presence when, for the most part, On is performing very, very, very damn well. The second game on the All-Star was a bit rough early on. Jwei and Photic did get the better of him, but then On still found ways to be able to pull off some of those signature Q flash combos. My goodness.
Look at the gold graph, man. They barely had a 1400 gold lead. 1450 is the highest they reached, and that looked like it was about 10 to not like 7 to 10 minutes there. And after that, it's just completely BLG favored. And
that's tough.
Another thing to add is that IG had first selection choice for both games. For the very first game of this series, they chose counterpick. Got smashed in mid lane with the Yone. We go to game 2, and they chose counterpick again. And what did we do with it? We got, like, yeah. And then he got solo killed anyway. Like, I know we don't have the strongest laners, but I'm really disappointed with the coaching staff here. And now it's like a whole org thing, right? Like, the players aren't playing well. The coaching staff isn't preparing or giving us good enough drafts to perform in a good enough way. There's a lot of things going on over there.
Invictus Gaming is definitely struggling to find their identity in this group Ascend and trying to consistently rely on the strengths that we saw from their peaks in just the past few months. Not even just referring to Demacia Cup finals and the run that they had. I will still continue to believe that for some reason, while Jwei and Rookie were some of the more inconsistent members towards the regular season and playoff run for IG in Split 3, they were the two single best performing members in that series against T1, which was extremely disappointing if you were the Shy fan watching this guy assert himself as the best top laner in the LPL by the end of Split 3 regular season, and then
the spy activated, bro.
Yep. Lose all identity of that whatsoever. So
it is funny watching that series too, because like everybody loses their mind when they see the Varus top lane, and then we get all the words about after scrim or after Worlds ends, whereas like Varus top was running the first 2 weeks of the meta, and everybody was afraid of this champion and playing it because they knew if you play against Varus top, what happens in scrims is that he bullies you the first 3 levels of the game. If you go to hit your minions, he hits you. He out-trades you, and he can win certain 1v2 positions if he has like Ghost or something. So yeah. This champion was a nightmare that thankfully never took off, and maybe because we ended up seeing the Shy end up floundering, that champion never really got to a good enough spot. But that is it, Raafaa. That's the end of our show. We'll be probably, I'm going to think about MVP, but it's probably still going to go to Knight. If it's not Knight, then could be Bin. Other than that, I am not particularly interested in giving too much. I'm going to assume, though, that Knight is getting another MVP of the series, though.
It would be extremely funny to just see Knight pick up another player of the game into player of the series combo, which is exactly what's going to happen. Okay. So unfortunately for Tarzan, you were tied for most player of the series awards.
For an hour, so for like 2 hours.
For 2 hours. It's going back to Knight, buddy.
He also had it before you, so you kind of joined him up for a little bit. Yeah, just keep flashing the card, brother. You're a card-carrying Knight fan. Look, I'll let you borrow my jersey. I just don't think it's coming back the same size. So.
No, I will definitely stretch it out. But it's okay. Look at that. Wow. You know, the funny thing was when we saw the player of the game votes in the previous game, 2 of them had given it over to Xuan Xinjiao. This time, undisputed, uncontested, all 8 for Knight Sakali. He definitely did some disgusting things on that assassin. But ladies and gentlemen, gamers all over around the world who tuned in to this wonderful broadcast of the LPL English, there it is. Player of the match, Knight. Now
anyway,
3.
Continue.
That is the end of our broadcast for tonight's coverage of LPL. Before we close out the show, thank you very much to our elite coffee supporters, Aaron Soup, Mung, Forest Without, and owners of a Cimmeril, because their pledged financial contributions help level up the broadcast and give back to the cast and crew who strive to give you an English LPL product every single day. It's always a pleasure to cast here on the channel, especially with you, Alk. I feel like we always get some fun bangers, and you know, while this was a stomp from BLG, I will still very much reminisce in the fact that Knight used this time to just aura farm IG in back-to-back games.
Yeah, BLG this season seems like it's going to be a lot of hype moments in aura farming, so hopefully we get some really cool plays coming out for them. But that's the end of our show here. Thank you, Raafaa, for coming on through. Thank you to Gordo and Gordo and Jbeto for holding down on the first shift. Obviously, we have Shivam on the sticks here for prod. And thank you for everybody for watching. I know it's a little bit more of an extended post-show as we wait for some of those graphics to come on through. But we'll be back here tomorrow with some more LPL action. Cool?
Yeah, shout out
Take
also
it,
to Zach and Trina on socials and Mon Duty for tonight.
There you go.
Also, thank you for being on the chaotic train with us. But until tomorrow, y'all, same time, see you next time, and keep safe, healthy, and all that good jazz.